The acrid smell of burning wood and melted vinyl records filled the Chicago night air. As Liliana Rossi stood frozen on the corner of Mulberry Street, watching orange flames devour everything her grandmother had built, the music shop, Rossi's Melody Haven, had stood in Little Italy for 43 years, surviving economic downturns, neighborhood changes, and even her grandmother's passing 5 years ago. It had survived everything, except the wrath of the Bianco twins. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She simply walked forward, her heels clicking against the wet pavement with deliberate precision, past the gathering crowd of neighbors who whispered and pointed, past the firefighters who were just beginning to unroll their hoses, straight toward the two men who stood across the street like dark sentinels observing their handiwork. Simone Bianco noticed her first. His sharp gray eyes, the color of storm clouds, tracked her approach with the practiced awareness of a predator who never let anything catch him by surprise. He was the older twin by 7 minutes, though most people said those 7 minutes might as well have been 7 years, for all the difference they made in temperament. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of her shop's rent, and his dark hair was styled with the kind of casual perfection that took serious money to maintain. Everything about Simone Bianco screamed control, calculation, and cold precision. Stefano, standing beside his brother, was cut from the same genetic cloth, but painted with different strokes. He radiated restless energy, his jaw tight with something that looked almost like conflict, and his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his black leather jacket, as if to keep them from doing something he might regret. Where Simone was ice, Stefano was fire barely contained. His eyes, the same gray as his brother's, held more emotion, though whether it was anger, guilt, or something else entirely, Liliana couldn't tell and didn't care. She stopped 3 feet from them, close enough that they could see the soot on her coat, the ash in her dark hair, the fury in her brown eyes that burned hotter than the flames consuming her livelihood. "You destroyed the wrong person's life," Liliana said, her voice steady despite the rage coursing through her veins. Simone's expression didn't change. "Did we, Miss Rossi? Because the evidence suggests otherwise." "What evidence?" She took another step forward, and eliminating the safe distance between them. "An anonymous note? A convenient tip that I was selling information to the Vitale family. Did you even bother to verify it, or did you just light the match because someone told you to?" Stefano flinched, just barely, but Liliana caught it. At least one of them had a conscience, however small. "We don't act without certainty," Simone replied, but there was the slightest edge to his voice now, the first crack in his composure. Liliana laughed, bitter and sharp. "Certainty? My grandmother opened that shop in 1981 with money she saved from 40 years of cleaning houses. She built it into a place where neighborhood kids could afford guitar lessons, where old men could buy Sinatra records and remember when they were young, where people like me could believe there was something in this world besides blood and violence. And you burned it to the ground based on certainty? Your grandmother also had connections to the Marconi family," Simone said coldly. "Don't pretend this shop was some innocent enterprise. Everyone in Little Italy knows the building was purchased with Marconi money, that your family has always existed in the shadows of our world. My grandmother took a loan from Anthony Marconi 43 years ago and paid it back in full within 5 years," Liliana shot back. "That's not a connection. That's business. And unlike you, she never burned down someone's life's work on a rumor." The fire behind them roared louder as part of the roof collapsed, sending sparks spiraling into the night sky like dying stars. The crowd gasped, but Liliana didn't turn around. She kept her eyes fixed on the twins, particularly on Simone, who seemed to be the decision-maker between them. "You think you're untouchable," she continued, her voice dropping lower, more dangerous. "You think you can destroy whatever you want, hurt whoever you want, because you run this neighborhood. But you're wrong about me, and you're going to regret this." Stefano spoke for the first time, his voice rougher than his brother's, edged with something that might have been doubt. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," Liliana said, meeting his gaze directly. "I don't know who set me up, or why, but I'm going to find out, and when I do, you're going to have to face what you've done tonight." She turned on her heel to walk away, but Simone's voice stopped her. "You're coming with us." Liliana spun back around. "Excuse me." "If you're innocent as you claim, you'll submit to questioning," Simone said, already gesturing to a black SUV that pulled up to the curb as if on cue. "If you refuse, it only confirms our suspicions." "I don't have to confirm or deny anything to you. You're not the police." "No," Stefano said, stepping closer to her, and she noticed for the first time how tall he was, how his presence seemed to fill the space around him. "We're much worse than the police. And if you run, it makes you look guilty. Is that what you want?" Liliana weighed her options in the space of 3 heartbeats. She could run, but they'd find her. She could scream, but no one in this neighborhood would intervene in Bianco business. She could fight, but there were at least 6 men now surrounding them, all wearing the same dark suits, all watching her with the dead-eyed attention of professional enforcers. "Fine," she said finally. "But when you realize you're wrong, I want more than an apology. I want my shop rebuilt, exactly as it was." Simone's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "If you're innocent, we'll discuss reparations. If you're not, you won't be in a position to make demands." The ride to the Bianco estate took 20 minutes, though it felt like hours. Liliana sat in the back seat between 2 silent guards, while the twins rode up front, speaking to each other in low tones she couldn't quite hear. She watched the familiar streets of Little Italy give way to the more affluent neighborhoods, then to the sprawling property in Oak Brook, where the Bianco family had established their stronghold decades ago. The estate was everything she expected. Imposing iron gates, manicured grounds, a mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from Sicily. Security cameras tracked their progress up the long driveway. Men with earpieces and concealed weapons patrolled the perimeter. This was the heart of Bianco power, and Liliana was walking into it with no allies, no weapons, and no guarantees she'd walk out again. They led her into a study that smelled of leather and old money. Dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk that looked like it had witnessed countless business dealings, both legal and otherwise. Simone took position behind the desk, while Stefano leaned against the wall near the door, blocking her exit. The 2 guards remained outside. "Sit," Simone commanded, gesturing to a chair positioned in front of the desk. Liliana remained standing. "I'll stand, thanks. It wasn't a request. And yet I'm declining. If we're going to do this, we do it as equals, or we don't do it at all." Something flickered in Simone's eyes. Surprise, maybe? Or respect. It was gone too quickly to identify. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers, studying her with the intensity of a chess player analyzing his opponent's strategy. "Tell me about your relationship with Marco Vitali," he said. "I don't have one." "That's not what our sources say." "Then your sources are lying," Liliana replied evenly. "I've never met Marco Vitali. I've never done business with the Vitali family. I run a music shop. It's not a criminal enterprise." Stefano pushed off from the wall, his frustration evident in every movement. We have documented evidence that you met with Vitale's consigliere, Vincent Calabrese, 3 times in the past month. We have phone records showing calls between your shop and Vitale operations. We have testimony from reliable sources that you were passing information about our supply routes and business dealings. Then someone went to a lot of trouble to fabricate that evidence, Liliana said, her mind racing. 3 meetings she never had, phone calls she never made, testimony from sources she'd never met. This wasn't random. This was calculated, deliberate, designed to paint her as a traitor. But why? You expect us to believe you were framed? Simone's tone suggested he found the idea laughable. I expect you to use your brains instead of just your matches, Liliana snapped back. Think about it. If I were really selling information to the Vitales, would I be stupid enough to use my shop phone? Would I meet with their consigliere in public places where I could be photographed? Would I stick around after you burned down my shop instead of disappearing into witness protection or Vitale's arms? Stefano and Simone exchanged a glance, some wordless communication passing between them that only twins could share. She has a point, Stefano said quietly. Or she's a very good actress, Simone countered, but there was less certainty in his voice now. Before Liliana could respond, the study door burst open. A man she recognized as Antonio Russo, the twins' most trusted advisor and consigliere, stood in the doorway, his usually composed face ashen with panic. Donna Bianco, he said breathlessly. There's been an attack. She's being rushed to Northwestern Memorial. Critical condition. The effect on the twins was instantaneous and devastating. All the cold calculation, all the controlled fury, all the careful composure. It shattered like glass. Stefano moved first, already heading for the door, while Simone stood so abruptly, his chair crashed backward into the bookshelf. What happened? Simone demanded, his voice rough with barely contained terror. Shooting. 3 men. She was leaving the charity gala at the Drake Hotel. Security got her into the car, but she took at least 2 rounds. That's all I know. The twins were moving before Antonio finished speaking, and Liliana found herself momentarily forgotten in their panic. She could have run. She could have disappeared into the chaos of the household mobilizing for crisis. Instead, something in their raw fear, in the way these 2 powerful men were suddenly reduced to terrified sons, made her follow. The hospital was in lockdown when they arrived. Bianco security already establishing a perimeter around the emergency wing. Liliana trailed behind, ignored by everyone focused on the crisis at hand. She watched as doctors in blood-stained scrubs spoke in low, urgent tones to the twins. She saw Stefano punch a wall hard enough to crack the plaster. She saw Simone's hands shake as he tried to light a cigarette, before a nurse reminded him this was a hospital. Hours crawled past. Liliana found a chair in the corner of the private waiting room and simply waited, though she couldn't have explained why. Maybe it was because she'd lost her grandmother in a hospital, not unlike this one. Maybe it was because, despite everything, she understood the particular terror of waiting to hear if someone you loved would live or die. It was nearly dawn when a surgeon emerged, and everyone in the waiting room stood as one. She's stable, the surgeon said, and the collective exhale was audible. 2 gunshot wounds, one to the shoulder, one to the upper chest. We removed both bullets. No major organ damage. She lost a lot of blood, but she's strong. She's asking to speak to someone named Liliana. The waiting room went silent. Every eye turned to Liliana, who stood slowly, her heart hammering. That's me, she said quietly. The surgeon looked confused, glancing between her and the twins. Your family. Let her through, Simone said, his voice hoarse. They led Liliana to a recovery room, where Donna Bianco lay in the hospital bed, looking far smaller and more fragile than Liliana expected. She'd seen Donna Bianco around the neighborhood. Everyone had. The former queen of the Bianco Empire, even in retirement, commanded respect and attention wherever she went. She was beautiful, in the way Italian women of a certain age could be, with silver hair and sharp cheekbones, and eyes that saw everything. Those eyes fixed on Liliana now with unmistakable recognition. "You," Donna whispered, her voice weak but clear. "The girl from the music shop." Liliana moved closer to the bed, aware of the twins hovering in the doorway, of Antonio and the guards just outside. "Yes, ma'am." "You saved my life," Donna said, and Liliana heard gasps from the doorway. 3 weeks ago. You remember?" And suddenly, Liliana did remember. It had been a Tuesday evening, just after closing. She'd been locking up the shop when she'd seen an older woman being followed by 3 men who moved with the predatory coordination of professionals. Liliana had recognized the danger instantly. You didn't grow up in Little Italy without learning to read threat in body language and movement. She'd done the only thing she could think of. She'd caused a scene, running toward the woman, calling out, "Aunt Maria, I've been looking everywhere for you," loudly enough to draw attention from the busy street. The 3 men had melted away into the crowd, and the woman had thanked her quietly before getting into a waiting car. "I didn't know it was you," Liliana said honestly. "I just saw someone in danger." "Those were Marco Vitale's men," Donna continued, her breathing labored. "They were going to kill me that night. You stopped them. And when they reported back to Marco that some shop girl had interfered, that someone could identify them." She paused, gathering strength. "He set you up. The evidence against you. The meetings that never happened. The phone calls. All fabricated. He wanted my sons to eliminate the witness to his assassination attempt." The implications crashed through the room like a tidal wave. Liliana saw understanding dawn on the twins' faces, followed immediately by horror, then rage. "And we gave him exactly what he wanted," Stefano said, his voice breaking. "We burned down her shop. We threatened her. We brought her here too." He couldn't finish the sentence. Simone looked like he might be sick. He stared at Liliana with something approaching devastation. "You saved our mother's life, and we nearly killed you for it." Donna reached out a trembling hand toward Liliana. "Thank you, my dear. You asked for nothing, expected nothing, and still you acted when it mattered. That kind of courage is rare." "I need to speak with my sons," Donna said, her eyes moving to the doorway. "Alone." The twins entered while Antonio ushered Liliana out into the hallway. She could hear raised voices through the door, Donna's weak but fierce, the twins' responses too low to make out. When they finally emerged 20 minutes later, both men looked like they'd aged a decade. Simone approached Liliana first, and for a moment she thought he might actually kneel. He stopped just short of it, his usual mask of control completely absent. "There are no words," he began, his voice raw. "Nothing I can say will undo what we've done. We were wrong. Catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. We'll rebuild your shop," Stefano added, moving to stand beside his brother. Exactly as it was, every detail, every instrument, every record, we'll make it right. Liliana looked between them, these 2 powerful men who hours ago had been her executioners, and now stood before her offering reparations. She should have felt vindicated. She should have demanded more. Instead, she just felt tired. "Your mother almost died," she said quietly. "Marco Vitale wanted her dead and wanted me silenced. This isn't over. He failed twice, but men like him don't give up. Marco Vitali is a dead man walking, Simone said, and there was such cold certainty in his voice that Liliana didn't doubt him for a second. But you're right. Until we've dealt with him completely, you're in danger. He knows you can identify his assassins. Which is why you and your sister are moving into protective custody, Stefano said. We have a secure apartment in Gold Coast. Full security, everything you need. It's not negotiable. My sister... Liliana's blood ran cold. Rosa has nothing to do with this. Marco Vitali doesn't care, Simone said grimly. If he can't get to you, he'll go after her to draw you out. We're bringing her in tonight. Liliana wanted to argue, to refuse, to maintain her independence. But she thought of Rosa. Sweet, naive Rosa, who was finishing her nursing degree and had never hurt anyone in her life, and knew she had no choice. Fine, she said. But I want your word, your actual word, both of you. Rosa stays safe. She knows nothing about any of this, and she stays innocent. You have my word, Simone said immediately. And mine, Stefano added. As dawn broke over Chicago, Liliana found herself in a luxury apartment she'd never dreamed of entering, with armed guards outside her door and the two men who destroyed her life now sworn to protect it. Rosa arrived within the hour, confused and frightened, and Liliana held her sister while trying to explain how their simple life had become so impossibly complicated. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the city waking up, could imagine smoke still rising from where her grandmother's shop used to stand. Everything had changed in one night. The question now was whether she'd survive long enough to see what came next. The Gold Coast apartment was beautiful in the way that expensive things often were. All clean lines and neutral colors and windows that offered a view of Lake Michigan that probably cost more per month than Liliana's shop made in a year. It felt like a gilded cage, luxurious but confining, especially with Rosa pacing the living room like a trapped bird, demanding answers Liliana wasn't sure how to provide. Start from the beginning, Rosa said, for the third time, her dark eyes wide with confusion and fear. Why are there men with guns outside our door? Why did they pull me out of my clinical rotation at 3 a.m? And why are you telling me we can't go home? Liliana sat her sister down on the leather sofa that probably cost more than their entire furniture collection, and tried to explain without terrifying her. She told Rosa about witnessing the attempted hit on Donna Bianco, about being framed by Marco Vitali, about the shop burning down. She left out the parts about being interrogated by the twins, about how close she'd come to disappearing permanently. Rosa didn't need those nightmares. So we're witnesses, Rosa asked, her nursing training kicking in as she tried to process the information logically. And this Vitali person wants to eliminate us? He wants to eliminate me, Liliana corrected. You're only in danger because you're my sister, which is why you're going to stay here, stay safe, and let the Biancos handle this. The same Biancos who burned down your shop? The same Biancos who are rebuilding it and keeping us alive, Liliana said firmly. I know it's complicated, Rosa, but right now, they're all that stands between us and Marco Vitali. The apartment came with a full staff, a housekeeper named Marta, who spoke limited English but made incredible espresso, a chef named Giuseppe, who seemed personally offended if they didn't eat 3 full meals daily, and a security detail that rotated every 8 hours. It also came with frequent visits from the twins themselves. Simone appeared the next morning with architectural plans for the shop reconstruction. He spread them across the dining room table, with the precision of a general planning a military campaign, pointing out how they'd sourced original materials, how they'd tracked down the craftsman who built the original front counter, How they'd even located copies of her grandmother's favorite records to replace the ones destroyed in the fire. This is the main floor layout," he explained, his finger tracing the blueprint. "We've kept everything exactly as it was, down to the placement of the listening booths. The second floor had water damage from a pipe leak 2 years ago," Liliana interrupted, studying the plans. "My grandmother never fully repaired it. She said she'd get to it eventually." Simone made a note. "We'll repair it properly." What did she want to use the space for? Private lessons. She always said if she could fix the floor and add soundproofing, she could rent it out to music teachers. "Consider it done." Liliana looked up at him. This man who'd ordered her life destroyed and was now rebuilding it with obsessive attention to detail. "Why are you doing this yourself? Don't you have people for this?" "I have people for many things," Simone replied, meeting her gaze. "But this is my mistake to fix. Personally." Stefano's visits were different, less structured, more restless. He'd show up at odd hours, late evening, early morning, always with some excuse about security updates or new information about Marco Vitale's operations. But Liliana noticed he spent more time talking to her than delivering information. "You didn't have to come at 11 at night to tell me they increased the perimeter security," she said one evening, finding him on the apartment's balcony overlooking the lake. "Couldn't sleep," Stefano admitted, his hands gripping the railing. "Keep thinking about the fire, about what could have happened if our mother hadn't asked for you. But she did, and I'm fine." "You shouldn't have to be fine with almost dying because of our mistake." He turned to face her, and in the moonlight she could see the guilt etched into his features. "I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of in this life, Liliana. It comes with the territory, but I've never gone after an innocent person before. Never destroyed something beautiful just because someone told me to. The shop or me?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Stefano's eyes widened slightly. "Both," he said quietly. "Definitely both." The days blurred together in the strange limbo of protective custody. Rosa threw herself into studying for her nursing boards, determined to maintain some normalcy. Liliana divided her time between reviewing shop reconstruction plans with Simone and trying not to notice the way Stefano looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. It was Donna Bianco's request that changed everything. The matriarch was recovering well enough to be moved to a private room at the estate under 24-hour medical supervision. She asked to see Liliana on a Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks after the hospital. The twins escorted her personally, flanking her like guards as they walked through the mansion to Donna's suite. The room was filled with flowers, roses and lilies and orchids that perfumed the air with their competing fragrances. Donna sat propped up in an oversized bed, looking stronger than she had in the hospital, but still fragile, still recovering. "Leave us," Donna commanded, and the twins obeyed without argument, closing the door behind them. "You're wondering why I asked for you," Donna said, gesturing for Liliana to sit in the chair beside her bed. "Among other things." Donna smiled, a flash of the formidable woman she must have been in her prime. "I wanted to thank you properly, not in a hospital with my sons hovering and monitors beeping. Here, where we can talk as women." "You don't owe me thanks, Mrs. Bianco. Anyone would have done what I did." "No, they wouldn't have," Donna said firmly. "Most people would have looked away. It's easier, safer. But you saw someone in danger, and you acted, without knowing who I was or what it might cost you. That speaks to character." She reached for a small box on her nightstand, offering it to Liliana with trembling hands. Inside was a vintage record, Maria Callas singing Puccini's greatest arias, an original pressing from the 1950s that Liliana recognized instantly as rare and valuable. "My late husband gave this to me on our wedding day," Donna said softly. 47 years ago. I've treasured it ever since. I want you to have it." "I can't accept this," Liliana protested. "It's too valuable, too personal, which is exactly why you should have it. You appreciate music. You understand its power to transform spaces and souls. This belongs with someone who will value it, not locked away in my collection." Donna's eyes grew distant. "Your grandmother and I knew each other, you know. Not well, but we'd speak sometimes when I'd visit your shop. She was a wise woman. She built something meaningful in a neighborhood drowning in violence and greed. You're continuing her legacy. The shop burned down. Buildings burn. Legacies don't. You'll rebuild, with my son's help, and it will be even better than before." Donna paused, studying Liliana with unsettling intensity. "They're both falling in love with you. You realize this?" Liliana nearly dropped the record. What? No. They're just trying to make amends." "My dear girl, I've known those boys for 34 years. I've seen them with women before, many women. They're handsome, powerful, wealthy. They've never lacked for female attention. But I've never seen them like this. Simone spends hours on your shop plans when he should be running our business operations. Stefano can't make it through a day without finding some excuse to see you. They're both completely undone." "You're misreading the situation," Liliana said, but her heart was hammering. "They feel guilty. That's all this is. Guilt makes men write checks and disappear. It doesn't make them redesign entire buildings with obsessive attention to detail. It doesn't make them stand guard outside apartments at 3 a.m, even though there's already a security team in place." Donna reached out, taking Liliana's hand. "I'm telling you this not to frighten you, but to warn you. My sons have never competed over anything significant before. They've always been united, two halves of the same whole. But you're changing that dynamic, and I need to know you understand the power you hold. I'm not trying to come between them. I know you're not. That's why it's working." Donna squeezed her hand gently. "Just be careful, with their hearts and with your own. The path ahead is complicated, and in our world, complications can be deadly." That evening, Liliana couldn't stop thinking about Donna's words. She found herself watching Simone differently as he explained new security protocols, noticing the way his eyes lingered on her face, the way his voice softened when he spoke directly to her. She caught herself analyzing Stefano's visits, recognizing patterns she'd dismissed before, how he always found reasons to stay longer, how his questions grew more personal, how the space between them seemed to shrink every time they spoke. It came to a head 3 nights later, in the apartment's music room. Giuseppe the chef had a piano shipped in when he learned Liliana played, insisting that a proper home needed music. It was a beautiful instrument, a Steinway grand that probably cost more than her entire shop's inventory. Liliana had been avoiding it, feeling like she didn't deserve such luxury, but that night she couldn't resist. She was playing Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major when Stefano found her. She heard him enter but didn't stop, letting the music speak what words couldn't. The longing, the confusion, the strange ache that had taken up residence in her chest over the past weeks. When the final notes faded, Stefano spoke from the doorway. "My mother used to play that piece when she was younger, before everything became about business and territory and survival." "Donna told me she loves classical music," Liliana said, keeping her eyes on the keys. "I've been thinking about visiting her. Bringing recordings, if that would be okay. It would mean the world to her, and to me. Stefano moved closer, his footsteps soft on the hardwood floor. Can I tell you something? Something I probably shouldn't? Liliana's fingers found a random chord, then another, creating aimless music to fill the dangerous silence. That's usually the kind of thing people should keep to themselves. Probably, but I'm tired of keeping it to myself. He sat beside her on the piano bench, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. I can't stop thinking about you. Not just guilt, not just obligation. I close my eyes and see you walking toward us through the smoke, fearless and furious. I hear your voice calling us out, refusing to be intimidated. I remember the way you held your sister when she was scared, the way you play piano like you're having a conversation with the music itself. And I know I have no right to feel any of this, but I can't turn it off. Liliana's hands stilled on the keys. Stefano, I know, trust me, I know how impossible this is. You should hate us. You should want nothing to do with my family. But I'm selfish enough to hope that maybe, possibly, you could see past what we did, to who we could be, to who you make me want to be. She turned to face him, and the vulnerability in his eyes took her breath away. This wasn't the Mafia enforcer, the dangerous twin, the man who'd threatened her life. This was just Stefano, stripped of armor and defenses, offering her something precious and fragile. I don't hate you, she whispered. I should, but I don't, and that terrifies me. He reached up slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. You terrify me too, in the best possible way. The kiss happened like music, inevitable, building in intensity, crescendoing into something that felt both brand new and achingly familiar. Stefano's hands tangled in her hair, while hers gripped his jacket, pulling him closer. It was desperate and tender and completely inappropriate and absolutely right, all at the same time. They broke apart at the sound of someone clearing their throat. Simone stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. We need to talk, he said, his voice carefully controlled. All three of us. The next hour was the most uncomfortable of Liliana's life. They moved to the living room, the three of them arranged like points on a triangle, the air thick with tension and unspoken accusations. How long? Simone asked, looking at his brother. Tonight was the first. Stefano started, then stopped. But the feelings have been building for weeks. Simone's jaw tightened. And you didn't think to mention this to me? We've never kept secrets about women before. She's not just any woman, and you know it. That's precisely why you should have said something. Simone turned to Liliana. And you? What do you want from all this? I don't know, Liliana answered honestly. A month ago, my biggest concern was whether I could afford to replace the water heater in my shop. Now I'm hiding from assassins and apparently caught in the middle of whatever this is between you two. I never asked for any of this. But you feel something, Stefano said quietly. Don't you? That's not fair, Liliana said, standing abruptly. You can't put this on me. I'm the one whose life got turned upside down. I'm the one who lost everything. I'm the one trying to keep my sister safe while processing trauma and guilt. And now, apparently, feelings I have no business having for either of you. Let alone both, she stopped, realizing what she just admitted. Simone stood slowly, his eyes locked on her face. Both? Liliana wanted to take it back, to lie, to deflect. But she was tired of pretending, tired of analyzing her own heart and coming up with answers that made no sense. Yes, she said finally quietly. Both. I don't know how or why, but when Simone shows me shop plans and explains every detail like it matters more than anything else in his world, I feel seen in a way I never have before. And when Stefano looks at me, like I'm something precious worth protecting, I feel safe despite everything logical telling me I shouldn't. And I know this is impossible and inappropriate, and probably some kind of trauma response, but there it is. I care about both of you, and I have no idea what to do about it. The twins exchanged a long look, one of those wordless communications that only siblings who'd survived everything together could share. Finally, Stefano spoke. We've never fought over a woman before. Because we've never met a woman worth fighting over, Simone replied. Then to Liliana. But we're not going to fight, not over this, not over you. What does that mean? Liliana asked warily. It means, Simone said, moving closer to her, that my brother and I need to have a conversation. And you need to decide what you actually want, not what you think you should want or what makes logical sense. Just what you want. And if what I want is impossible, Stefano smiled, sad and hopeful all at once. We're the Bianco twins. We've built an empire on making the impossible happen. Don't count us out yet. They left her alone after that, and Liliana spent the rest of the night staring at the lake, trying to understand how her heart had become so thoroughly tangled up in two men who should have been her enemies. Somewhere in the building, the twins were having their own conversation, making their own decisions about a future that involved all three of them. And somewhere out there, Marco Vitale was planning his next move, unaware that he'd set in motion something far more dangerous than a simple assassination. He'd created a bond between three people that was about to rewrite all the rules. The shop reconstruction was nearly complete when Simone and Stefano made their proposal. They'd asked Liliana to meet them there on a Saturday afternoon, the first time she'd been allowed to visit since the fire. Rosa came too, thrilled to finally leave the apartment for something other than guarded trips to her clinical rotations. Liliana stood on the sidewalk where she'd watched flames consume her grandmother's legacy and stared at what the twins had built in its place. It looked exactly as she remembered. The same green awning with gold lettering, the same large windows displaying instruments, the same wooden door with its brass handle shaped like a treble clef. But it was also somehow better, restored not just to its former glory, but to what it could have been if money and time hadn't been constant concerns. We kept everything, Simone said, appearing beside her with a set of keys. Every detail from your grandmother's original design. But we also made improvements. The second floor is fully renovated with soundproofed teaching rooms. The electrical system is updated to code. The plumbing is completely new. And the basement. We found your grandmother's storage, Stefano interrupted, excited despite himself. Boxes of old inventory she'd saved. Vintage guitars, rare records, sheet music dating back to the 40s. We cataloged everything and had it professionally restored where possible. Liliana took the keys with trembling hands and unlocked the door. The smell hit her first. New wood and old memories mixed together. The layout was exactly as she remembered, but everything was pristine, perfect, untouched by fire or time or tragedy. Her grandmother's antique cash register sat on the counter, somehow salvaged and restored. The listening booths along the back wall had been rebuilt with their original oak frames. Even the creaky floorboard near the classical section had been preserved. The upstairs, Simone said quietly, and Liliana climbed the stairs to find 6 small teaching rooms, each with soundproofing, music stands, and space for instruments. The room at the end had been converted into a small office. With built-in shelves and a desk positioned to overlook the street below, she sat down in the desk chair and cried. Not pretty tears, but the ugly, cathartic kind that came from grief and gratitude, and the overwhelming realization that something she'd lost had been given back to her, transformed. Rosa found her there, pulling her into a fierce hug. "It's perfect, Lily. Nona would love it." "She would," Liliana managed, wiping her eyes. "She really would." They let her explore in private for an hour before the twins returned, and when they did, they weren't alone. Antonio was with them, along with Donna Bianco, still recovering, but determined to see the finished shop. They gathered in the main room, and Liliana realized this wasn't just a walkthrough. This was something more formal. "Before we return this to you," Simone began, "there's something we need to discuss. About your safety." The warmth Liliana had been feeling evaporated. "Marco Vitale." "His operations have gone quiet," Antonio said. "Too quiet. We believe he's planning something significant, and all our intelligence suggests you're still the primary target." "Which brings us to our proposal," Stefano said, and the twins exchanged that look again, the one that suggested they'd rehearsed this conversation extensively. "We want to offer you protection, not temporary housing in a secure apartment, but something more permanent, more binding." Liliana's heart started hammering. "What are you suggesting?" Simone stepped forward, his usual composure showing cracks. "We've talked extensively about what happened, about what we feel, about what's possible, given who we are and what world we live in. And we've come to a conclusion that's going to sound insane." "We're both in love with you," Stefano said bluntly. "We've tried to ignore it, rationalize it, wait for it to pass. It hasn't. If anything, it's gotten stronger. And we've realized that neither of us can imagine a future without you in it." "But we're also not interested in fighting each other over you," Simone continued. "We're twins. We've shared everything our entire lives: responsibility, power, loyalty. The idea of competing for your affection, of one of us winning and the other losing, is unacceptable." Liliana's mouth had gone dry. "So what are you proposing?" "That you let us both court you," Stefano said. "That you give us a chance to prove we can make this work, all three of us together. Not as some temporary arrangement, but as something real and permanent." "You're talking about—" Liliana couldn't even finish the sentence. "An unconventional relationship," Simone said carefully. "We know how it sounds. We know the complications, the judgment we'd face, the practical difficulties. But we also know what we feel. And we know you feel something for both of us, don't you?" Liliana looked between them. These two men who'd destroyed her life and rebuilt it, who'd threatened her and protected her, who'd somehow worked their way past her defenses and into her heart, despite every logical reason to keep them out. "This is crazy," she said finally. "Probably," Stefano agreed. "But is it wrong? I don't know. I need time to think." The window shattered before she could finish the sentence. Everything happened simultaneously. Antonio shoving Donna to the ground, the twins moving to shield Liliana and Rosa, the rapid crack of gunfire tearing through the shop. Liliana felt Stefano's weight covering her as they hit the floor, heard Simone shouting orders into his phone, saw wood splintering and glass exploding around them. It lasted maybe 30 seconds but felt like hours. When the shooting stopped, the shop that had been perfect minutes ago was a war zone. Bullet holes stitching across walls, instruments destroyed, windows shattered. But everyone was alive. Security flooded in within minutes, sweeping the area. They found shell casings across the street and evidence of at least 3 shooters, but the attackers had vanished into the Saturday crowd. "Message from Vitale," Antonio said grimly, examining one of the casings. This was about sending a signal, but it was Rosa's scream that changed everything. Liliana turned to find her sister being held by 2 men who'd entered through the back, a gun pressed to Rosa's temple. And standing behind them, looking pleased with himself, was a man Liliana had never met but recognized instantly from photos. Marco Vitale was younger than she expected. Maybe 45, with the kind of polished appearance that came from money and ruthlessness in equal measure. He smiled at her like they were old friends reuniting. "Liliana Rossi," he said warmly. "Finally, we meet properly. I've heard so much about you." "Let her go," Liliana said, her voice surprisingly steady despite her terror. "She has nothing to do with this." "On the contrary, she has everything to do with this. She's the leverage I need to ensure your cooperation." Vitale's eyes moved to the twins. "Simone? Stefano, I appreciate you gathering everyone in one place. Saves me time." "You're a dead man," Stefano growled, already moving. But Vitale pressed the gun harder against Rosa's head and he stopped. "I'm the man holding all the cards," Vitale corrected. "Here's how this works. Liliana comes with me, alone, quietly. Or I kill her sister right here, then her, then your mother. Then burn this shop down again. Your choice." Liliana was already moving before anyone could stop her. "I'll go. Just let Rosa go first." "Liliana, no," Rosa sobbed. But Vitale's men were already separating them, pushing Rosa toward the twins while pulling Liliana toward the back exit. "Very noble," Vitale said approvingly. "I can see why they're so infatuated. Don't follow us," he added to the twins. "I have men positioned throughout the neighborhood. If I see Bianco security, your precious Liliana pays the price." The last thing Liliana saw before they shoved her into a waiting van was Stefano's face, twisted with rage and helplessness, and Simone already on the phone, coordinating something she couldn't hear. The warehouse they took her to was the cliché kind. Abandoned, isolated, full of shadows and rust and the smell of decay. Vitale had her secured to a chair in the center of the main floor, surrounded by his men. He pulled up another chair, sitting casually like they were having coffee. "You've caused me quite a bit of trouble," he said conversationally. "Do you know how much planning went into that hit on Donna Bianco? Months of surveillance, carefully coordinated timing, the perfect opportunity. And then you, a nobody, a shop girl, you ruined it by playing hero." "So kill me and get it over with," Liliana said, refusing to give him the satisfaction of her fear. "Oh, I will. But first we're going to wait for the twins to make their inevitable rescue attempt. They think they're subtle. You think I don't know they're already triangulating this location. Let them come. Let them watch while I eliminate the witness to my crime and the woman they both love." It's poetic, really. What Vitale didn't know was that Liliana had already worked one hand partially free. What he didn't see was Rosa's emergency penlight, still clipped to Liliana's jacket, from when her sister had insisted she carry it. And what he hadn't counted on was Liliana having grown up with a grandmother who'd survived an abusive marriage by learning to be resourceful, to find weapons in ordinary objects, to never be helpless even when she appeared defeated. The explosion came from the east side of the warehouse, Bianco's security creating a distraction. In the chaos, Liliana freed her other hand, grabbed the penlight, and jammed it into the eye of the guard nearest to her. She was running before Vitale could react, dodging through machinery and stacked crates while gunfire erupted around her. She found Rosa huddled behind a rusted forklift, having somehow escaped the guards who were supposed to be watching her. Liliana pulled her sister close, covering her as the battle raged. The twins came through different entrances, leading their men with military precision. Liliana watched Simone move like a chess master, positioning his forces to cut off Vitale's escape routes. She saw Stefano fight with controlled fury, taking down anyone who stood between him and where Liliana was hidden. When Simone finally cornered Marco Vitale, it was with a gun to the man's head and a choice. Exile or death, Simone said coldly. You have 10 seconds to decide. Vitale, faced with his own mortality, chose exile. He'd leave Chicago, leave the Midwest entirely, dismantle his operations and disappear. The Bianco family would be watching, and if he ever resurfaced, the offer of exile would be permanently withdrawn. They let him go. Not out of mercy, but because death made martyrs, and exiles made examples. The aftermath was surprisingly quiet. The Bianco family had enough influence to ensure the police report reflected a gang dispute unrelated to any specific individuals. The warehouse fire that mysteriously started after everyone left destroyed any inconvenient evidence. And Liliana and Rosa returned to the Gold Coast apartment, shaken but alive. It was 3 days before Liliana saw the twins again. 3 days of recovery, of comforting Rosa, of processing everything that had happened. When they finally appeared, it was late evening, and they looked like they hadn't slept since the warehouse. "We need to talk about security protocols," Simone started. But Liliana held up her hand. "No, we need to talk about what you proposed, before everything went to hell." The twins exchanged glances. "That might have been the trauma talking," Stefano said carefully. "We'd understand if you've changed your mind." "I haven't," Liliana said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "If anything, nearly dying made me realize life's too short to deny what I feel, just because it doesn't fit conventional definitions of normal." "What are you saying?" Simone asked, hope and fear mixing in his expression. "I'm saying yes, to courting, to seeing where this goes, to trying to make something work between the three of us. But I have conditions." "Name them," Stefano said immediately. "First, I keep my shop. It's mine, my grandmother's legacy, and it stays separate from your business. Second, Rosa remains completely protected and completely innocent. No Mafia business touches her, ever. Third, we build this relationship on honesty. No secrets, no games, no hiding things to protect me. And fourth," she paused, gathering courage, "you have to accept that I'm not going to be a traditional Mafia wife. I won't sit quietly in your mansion while you run the city. I'm going to live my life, run my business, be my own person. If you can't handle that, we stop this now." Simone smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually serious face. "I wouldn't want you any other way." "Neither would I," Stefano added, moving closer to her. "Though I'm hoping you'll at least visit the mansion occasionally." "I think that can be arranged." The next few weeks were the strangest of Liliana's life. The twins courted her with the same intensity they applied to everything else. Simone, with carefully planned dates to museums and concerts. Stefano with spontaneous adventures and late-night conversations that lasted until dawn. They never competed, never tried to outdo each other, instead seeming to instinctively understand how to complement what the other offered. Rosa, once she recovered from the trauma of being kidnapped, became an unexpected ally. "I did my nursing clinical in psychiatry," she told Liliana one morning. "I've seen all kinds of relationship structures. As long as everyone's happy and healthy and consenting, who cares if it's conventional? Nona used to say love finds its own shape." Maybe this is yours." Donna Bianco gave her blessing in person, inviting Liliana to a private lunch at the estate. "I know what people will say," she told Liliana over homemade pasta. "I know the judgment you'll face. But I've watched my sons their entire lives, and I've never seen them like this. You've made them better, more thoughtful, more human, more capable of real joy. That's worth more than any society's approval." She pressed something into Liliana's hand. A ring, vintage and beautiful, with small diamonds set in platinum. "This was my mother's. In our family, we give it to women who prove themselves family not by blood, but by action. You saved my life. You protected my sons' hearts, even when you had every reason to hurt them. You're family now, Liliana, in every way that matters." The proposal came 6 months later. Not at the shop or the mansion, but at the apartment, in the music room where everything had started to shift. Simone and Stefano asked together, both of them on one knee, offering her a choice that was really no choice at all, because her heart had already decided. "We can't promise conventional," Simone said. "We can't promise easy." "But we can promise loyalty," Stefano added. "Protection, partnership, and a love that's strong enough to rewrite the rules." "We're asking you to marry us," Simone continued. "Both of us, in whatever ceremony we can arrange, with whatever commitments we can make legal and binding. We're asking you to build a life with us that's never been built before." Liliana looked at these two men, so different, so similar, so completely essential to who she'd become. She thought about her grandmother, who'd always told her that love was brave and defied easy definition. She thought about Donna, who'd blessed this unconventional path. She thought about Rosa, who told her to follow her heart wherever it led. "Yes," she said simply, "to all of it. Yes." The ceremony was private, held at the Bianco estate, with only close family and the most trusted members of their organization present. Legally, Liliana could only marry one of them, Simone, as the elder. But the private vows they exchanged bound all three of them together in ways that transcended legal definitions. Antonio served as witness. Donna cried throughout. Rosa stood as Liliana's only attendant, holding the vintage record Donna had given her months ago as something old, something borrowed, something that connected past to present to future. "I never imagined this," Liliana said during their vows, speaking to both twins. "Growing up in Little Italy, helping my grandmother sell records to old men who missed Sicily, I never dreamed my life would become this story. You destroyed my shop and rebuilt it better. You threatened my life and then protected it with your own. You showed me that love doesn't have to look like anything except what we make it. So I promise you loyalty, honesty, and a partnership that honors what we've survived to get here. I promise to love you both, differently but equally, for as long as we all live." Simone's vows were characteristically precise. "I promise to protect what we've built, not just the business or the territory, but this family we've created. I promise to value your independence as much as your presence. I promise to spend every day proving worthy of the second chance you gave me." Stefano's were more emotional. "I promise to love you with everything I am. I promise to fight for this, for us, against anyone who says it's wrong or impossible. I promise to make you laugh even when everything seems dark. I promise to be the man you saw I could be, even when I couldn't see it myself." The celebration afterward was small but joyful. Giuseppe's cooking, Marta's happiness at seeing her employers finally settled, the music from Liliana's carefully curated playlist, filling the estate with Sinatra and Callas and everything in between. As the night wound down and guests departed, Liliana found herself on the balcony, overlooking the grounds with both twins flanking her, their hands intertwined with hers. "Regrets?" Simone asked quietly. "None," Liliana answered honestly, "though I reserve the right to develop some when dealing with two of you becomes insufferable." Stefano laughed. "That's fair. We can be a lot." "You can," she agreed, "but you're also mine. Both of you. And somehow, that makes everything else make sense." They stood there, as the Chicago light spread out before them. Three people who'd found their way to each other through fire and ash and near death, and rebuilt everything into something stronger. The shop was thriving, with students filling the teaching rooms and neighborhood kids discovering music like Liliana had decades ago. Rosa had graduated nursing school and was working at a hospital, blessedly ignorant of most Mafia business. Donna was healthy and happy, playing her vintage records and hosting Sunday dinners that had become sacred family tradition. And Liliana, the girl who'd inherited a music shop and nearly lost everything, had somehow found a love that defied definition, a family that chose loyalty over convention, and a future that was uniquely, impossibly, perfectly hers. The twins had torched her music shop for betrayal. They discovered she'd shielded their mother from assassins. And in the chaos and consequences of that discovery, they'd all found something none of them had been looking for, but all of them desperately needed, on each other. Thank you for reading this unique Mafia romance. If you enjoyed Liliana, Simone, and Stefano's unconventional love story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more captivating tales that challenge the boundaries of love and loyalty. What kind of romance would you like to see next? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support helps us create more content that celebrates love in all its forms.